There's a lot that goes into leading the Disneyland Resort. There's a balance between past and present and the future. There's keeping current guests happy, looking forward to future guests, and also taking care of your cast members. There's also all of the physical maintenance that goes into making the Disneyland Resort the happiest place on earth, day after day, year after year, decade after decade. On Thursday morning, Daps Magic and several other members of the media had a very candid and interesting conversation with President of the Disneyland Resort, Thomas Mazloum, and some of his key leaders. Today on Daps Magic, Disney and Positive Stuff, we're going to go through some of the highlights of this meeting. It really was comprehensive. We could go for hours on it. We're going to try to cut it down and keep it as concise as we possibly can. I'm Mr. Daps, and I hope you'll go with me as I explore the leadership, the invisible magic, the hospitality, and the entertainment of the Disneyland Resort, past, present, and future. The Disneyland Resort is at a pivot point. Thomas Mazloum took over the presidency about a year ago, and since then, we've seen changes happening at the Disneyland Resort. We haven't entirely known why, but those who visit on a regular basis could tell something's different. During this meeting with Mazloum and the rest of his team, we got a peek behind the curtain. All of it was on background, so I'm not going to quote anybody. I'm not going to point out any names. But what I am going to do is tell you what I saw, tell you what I heard, and tell you my thoughts on all of that as we move forward as Disney fans and as the Disneyland Resort moves into this new era that I'm calling the Mazloum Era, because why not? That makes sense to me. Really what it comes down to is during the Mazloum Era, there are three main priorities, or maybe a better word is actually principles that are being adhered to. One of them is trust in the company. Another one is quality of the guest experience. And then the third one is simplicity. And all of these things, or these three things, are being applied to all of the decisions, all of the activities, all of the things happening at the Disneyland Resort. There's 36,000 some odd cast members with different jobs and different personalities and different priorities, but all of them are being guided by these three core principles. And then from these three core principles, there's three focuses that are also being really put front and central. One of them is keeping the current guests happy. One of them is looking to future guests and how can they be attracted to the Disneyland Resort so that there's always a consumer base and a customer base that's coming and keeping the business healthy. And then third, the glue that's holding all of that together are the cast members. During the morning conversation, we got to hear how all three of these things are really being harmonized to create a healthy business, a magical experience for guests currently and also in the future, and then also really face all of the realities of an expanding Disneyland Resort, whether it's the construction that's happening with Eastern Gateway, Coco, Avatar, all of those fun things, and then also just utilizing every inch of the Disneyland Resort as it moves forward. So all of this came as Mazloum came into the Disneyland Resort about a year ago. And as he was coming in, really there were still a lot of effects of the pandemic being felt, both by guests and then also by cast members. And so one of the things that they started looking at is that 60% of the cast was hired after the pandemic that are at the Disneyland Resort. And so what they're realizing is because of so many new cast members, because of the way they had to change training for the pandemic, there isn't the same cultural foundation, I guess is a good word, that traditionally happened with the Disneyland Resort. So they're now expanding the investment in the training, expanding the investment in cast members, and really trying to set them up to make human connections, make magical moments, to be empowered to do the right thing as opposed to just stick by the book. And yes, there's that foundation of like, these are our guidelines, but they're also trying to empower guests or empower cast members to really take things to a next level. They're really doing this for new cast members with a new training system. It builds on the past of traditions. You still have your first day traditions, but the whole second day thing, where I believe it's called Step Into the Magic, you're now doing that for 2 days, and you're getting to not just be taught what it is to be a cast member, but you're observing it and you're being mentored so you catch what it is to be a cast member, and you can build that foundation of what a healthy cast member looks like and what it means to create those human connections that lead to magical moments. And really one of the big themes of the day was human connections lead to magical moments. And that's a huge part of the hospitality portion of the Disneyland Resort business. And there were stories shared about how that different cast members have made such a huge difference by doing something maybe a little bit above and beyond, or maybe something that wasn't in a playbook, but it was the right thing to do. And just that little bit of extra measure and that little bit of extra effort really made the day for guest or guests. One of the stories that was thrown out was talking about how when the monorail got stuck a few weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, 2 months, whatever, the cast member who was driving the monorail kept spieling every few minutes to give updates for the guests that were stuck inside, mainly so they just wouldn't feel completely left out in the dark and left and alone. Was this something that was in the manual that he was supposed to do? No, it was something that he did that really made a profound impact on the experience that, quite honestly, was not the greatest one in the world, probably. And it made such a huge difference that when they finally were all off of the monorail, the guests that were on it were clapping for this monorail driver, really in gratitude for what he'd done. Another story that was told also involved a monorail, and a lady called the guest, like the phone tree for the guest services for Disneyland, being stuck on it because she was very anxious and very concerned. And this person from Disney, not even at the resort, like they're offsite somewhere, she stayed on the phone with the lady for like 2 hours just to make sure that she had somebody that was listening to her and being with her, even though she didn't really know anything. She didn't have any information to give to this lady that was stuck on the monorail. But what she did have was time and heart and the ability to really walk through this situation with this lady and make the dark day less dark. And that's kind of something that they're really focusing on as they're really empowering cast members to do the right thing. And they're also doing this for current cast members. It's not just the new cast members who are getting additional training. New or current cast members are also going to be getting training that's really starting at the top and working its way down from management to core leads to the rank and file. And the whole goal with this really is to create a environment where cast members are empowered, they're equipped, and they can really make that Disney magic moment, which really does come, as I mentioned before, through connection for the guests at the Disneyland Resort. And this is important for business because that goes back to what are the things that are the focus of the Disneyland Resort as they're moving forward. And it comes back to, well, does this help keep current guests happy? Yes. Does it help bring in future guests? Actually, it probably does, because people talk about stuff all the time. And whether that's good or bad, these things tend to get out and stories get told. And so, yes, it could help bring in future guests. And then it also helps in the term of empowering the cast and making a better working environment. And apparently this is already working, because we did learn that there was a survey taken last year, and apparently 60% of Disneyland Resort cast members intend to stay at the Disneyland Resort for 5 years or longer. We also learned that the turnover rate is ridiculously low at the Disneyland Resort. It's only 15%. So that says to me they're investing in people. And I think when you invest in people, you can't go wrong. And it's really setting up a healthy environment to work and a healthy environment to play for the guests as they come to the Disneyland Resort. It was kind of interesting because they've really done this by getting back to the basics and building up on the fundamentals that Disney's had for a very long time. And then for whatever reason, law of unintended consequences, a pandemic, some of those things have been lost along the way. And Disney leaders acknowledged the missteps, I guess you could say, that have happened through the years, but they also are not afraid to say, hey, this is what happened. This is how we can make it better. And they have a very, I think, positive approach to this, because they're looking for opportunities for better. They're looking for opportunities to make magical experiences and to build up the good, both as cast members and then also for the experiences that are added to guests. And I think that's something that's very interesting as they're moving forward. They're also really focusing, as I'm speaking about connection with guests, is there's a focus on the connection between the cast member and the person in front of them, or the entertainer and the person in front of them, like that personal human connection to create Disney magic and not just screens, which is fascinating because we live in a world of screens, and they're really trying to balance the technology of the future with the importance of the human connection, because they recognize that the human connection is really where those magical moments and those memories are made. And that was a fascinating part of the conversation, was hearing about this renewed focus in hospitality, this renewed investment in people as people, and not just, a 36,000 numbered cast force. And that also just pivoted to the fact that with this renewed investment in people as cast members, you're also getting a renewed investment, I feel like, in guests as individuals as well. At one point, we heard how important it is for the guest feedback to the Disneyland leadership team. And they really use that as their North Star. I think that was the word they used. And how the letters that come in and the emails that come in are all read, and they all, good or bad, lead to the decisions. Like, they bring them all together, and they use all of these letters and this feedback to really make decisions about where the company is going and what they can do next, or I should say the resort is going and what they can do next. And I thought it was really fascinating to hear that, even guest compliments make such a huge difference. And that's part of the making the cast member experience that much more enjoyable, empowered, and equipped, is these guest compliments literally go to the guests and they get celebrated for them, especially when they have multiple ones. And that's just a fantastic thing to do as well, because what you focus on grows. And when you're focusing on these wins, big or small, they're going to keep growing and they're going to keep compiling. And you're going to see all of these little initiatives start building up to create something bigger. And that was a fascinating thing to hear from the team on Thursday morning, as we were talking about the culture, the art of hospitality, I think is what it was called during this meeting. And really, it wasn't a meeting. It was kind of a dialogue, I should say. Another thing that was interesting was the invisible magic that happens in the park. And this really could be overly simplified and be called the maintenance team, but it's so much more than maintenance. It's engineers, it's experts in certain things. It's the people that go in and make sure the rides do what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to be doing it. And they really do help make the magic happen. And so what they've discovered is, by changing the way that they do things and being proactive and coming up with new systems, they've been able to, this is where that 1.5 million number has been going around for the last couple of days, is they've been able to increase the amount of rides guests go on per year. And so 1.5 million more rides year over year from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25. And what they've learned is when people get on more rides and the rides work, they're happier. This is not a huge surprise to anybody, but they quantified it. And by increasing the amount of ride uptime, they were able to increase the guest satisfaction rate, which means that guests are happy, current guests are happy. That means future guests are not hearing about rides going down all the time. So they're more liable to come and want to experience Rise the Resistance or something. And then also that's just a much better environment for cast members to work in, because they're not having to stand in front of the entrance being like, I'm sorry, this is down right now. But it really was interesting, and we could do a whole podcast on this, about all of the different processes that have been put in place and efforts to make sure the rides work as much as they can. It's also interesting to learn that some of the opening and closure changes, those times that have changed and people are like, why are they doing this? I don't like this. All of that stuff. Those have been really valuable for the engineering teams as they work to keep the attractions running as much as they possibly can and really provide those fantastic experiences. And in some cases, like, it comes down to, it sounds like they've got minutes to spare on either ends of things, because not only do they have to work on the regular maintenance and the regulatory stuff, they also have to work on preventative maintenance, and then they have to work on the unintended maintenance of, oh, so this went down. And then also the scheduled maintenance that's coming in the future. So, Rise of the Resistance was just down for a few weeks, and that only happens once every few years. And so they're really trying to make this as efficient and use every ounce of energy and moments, all of these efforts, to make the best guest experience. And it was fascinating hearing how much of a difference that really made. Another fascinating thing that we learned about this, and this is something where it pays to pay attention, I guess you could say, is apparently 13% of ride closures, when they're unexpected downtimes, well, they're guest problems. Maybe a hat fell off, maybe somebody's dropped a cell phone. So this team is also working to try to mitigate those downtimes as well, with the goal really being attractions being open all the time and guests being able to ride them when they expect to ride them. But you might have seen signs at, Incredicoaster or Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And those really are about mitigating those downtimes that are caused by guests, hold on to those hats and glasses, all of that kind of fun stuff. But guest behavior can make a difference. All of this proactive preventative maintenance can make a huge difference. And from all of that, guests get a better experience. One other example that they offered in terms of this invisible magic is they went and did some work on the water tower for the Disneyland Railroad. And so they basically went in and put this new water tower in, and this allowed them to add water to the steam engine so much quicker than before. And because of that, they were able to get all 4 trains on the line, and they did a 10-day test. I think it was last November. And during that 10-day test, 29,000 more riders could go on the Disneyland Railroad because of the efficiency that came out of them putting in this new water tower and being able to basically make a better technical system that led to a better experience for guests who are in the park. They're also working on like Space Mountain and Indiana Jones to make better, it sounded like technology or software updates so that these attractions can get the vehicles in and out of the loading zones that much quicker, and that many more guests can get on and off the attractions that much faster. And then more people are going on more rides, and that means they're happier. And then we go back to those original 3 focal points, and you have now made happier guests now created opportunity for more guests in the future. And once again, the cast members will be happier as well, which that was a through line, I think, of the whole morning is really those three focal points with the core values of the simplicity, the trust, and the enhanced guest experience. And that was really interesting to hear with all of these different things going on at the Disneyland Resort. They all funnel back to these really basic ideas and principles. And I thought that was simply fantastic. Things are evolving also. So I go back to the human connection and really trying to attract new people with a human connection. And that's where entertainment often comes in at the Disneyland Resort. And so we really heard about the evolution of creativity in terms of entertainment. And it's perhaps best personified by Bluey's Best Day Ever that's coming in March, I think on the 22nd, to the Disneyland Resort at Fantasyland Theater. And you hear about how this isn't just a stage show that you sit passively and you watch and you clap at the end. Instead, it's an experience. It's interactive. There's games. You're singing. You're dancing. You're going and doing this activity over there. You're going and doing this over here. And part of this is recognizing that younger families and younger guests really do want to have the interactive component. They don't want to have the passive, traditional Broadway style theatrical experience, even though some of us older guests or theater kids, I don't know, would love to have the more traditional theatrical offerings. But there's a recognition that if they can create moments that create memories, that's going to go so much further than a really awe-inspiring show. And I will admit there's some logic to that, even though I loved, Aladdin, Frozen, Black. Like, there's been some phenomenal shows through the years. But even then, I think of like Aladdin right now, the moments I loved the most often were the unscripted, genie going off the cuff kind of thing that really did feel like a magical moment between the audience and the person on the stage. And so what they're really focusing on is creating experiences, entertainment experiences, where yes, you're getting world-class musicians, singers, dancers, entertainers, but you're also getting the opportunity to almost be a part of the show and interact with it, or at least feel like it's really close and you could reach out and touch it. And so they're kind of calling it a deconstructed theater approach when you think of Bluey and other things, that it's not sit and watch, it's you get to be a part of the experience. And to get to this level, they go through a creative process that really is both collaborative and also I think it really sharpens the knife as they go through it. So they basically get an idea at some point of like, hey, this initiative is going to happen, and they get this brief of like that, and then a bunch of different disciplines within the entertainment and business of the Disneyland Resort come together and come up with different ideas for, hey, we could do this thing. And they come up with a bunch of these. And then they have a pitch session. And basically it's like Shark Tank, and a bunch of Disneyland Resort leaders, including Thomas Mazloum, hear these ideas. One's chosen or a couple are chosen or whatever. And those are the ones that are developed further and eventually become something like Bluey's Best Day Ever or Wondrous Journeys or, Celebrate Happy Cavalcade, like whatever it is. That's how these things come to life. Speaking of the Bluey thing, though, this is a part of the business of the entertainment. Is the entertainment of the Disneyland Resort isn't just about keeping the current guests happy. In fact, there's a whole segment of the entertainment strategy, I guess you could call it, that really does focus on that. So it's the focus on, bringing in new characters every once in a while, the limited time magic offerings, the magic key things where you could meet Mickey and Minnie from opening day Disney California recently, or Disneyland After Dark with special offerings and characters, or Oogie Boogie Bash getting new villains every year, whatever that is. Those are really focused on the current segment of Disneyland guests to get them to keep coming back. But another big part of Disneyland entertainment is drawing in those new guests with new IP and those new exciting things that are happening, like Bluey, who happens to be, I think, the most watched show on Disney Plus last year. And so what they're really doing is they're reaching new people. They're reaching them with a new experience. It's going to be memorable with things that they're already familiar with from the franchise. And then hopefully that then pivots them to being repeat guests that, magic key holders, or we come a couple times a year, whatever that is. And then the entertainment is now helping fuel the Disneyland business and also hopefully having a lot of fun doing it at the same time. But the real goal of all of this is to really continue to be flexible, to really keep things, it seems like, vibrant, I think is probably a good word, and then also innovative. And that was a word we heard many times throughout the morning, whether it was through the invisible magic with all of the engineering and the maintenance, to the even hospitality. As you were thinking about hospitality, people were coming up with innovative ideas for how you can create the best guest experience and how you can invest in cast members and how you can train them up and do things different today than we did yesterday, because they're really looking for a better tomorrow for both guests and the Disneyland Resorts business needs. One other point that I also thought was interesting is one of the the guests refreshing of entertainment was the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge expansion of the timeline. And I thought that was interesting too, because that's kind of both. It's not only bringing back people that are like, ooh, these characters I haven't seen before, but I actually think this is also a huge deal, because there are people that maybe grew up with the original series of Star Wars and love them. Maybe they didn't connect as much with newer characters or later stories. And what this is going to do is it's going to expand the reach that Star Wars Galaxies has to both current guests and future guests, which then helps supply Disney with the guests it needs to stay open and to invest in the future and to be a vibrant business. And that's really what we all want, because when Disneyland is a vibrant business, or the Disney company is a vibrant business, that means there's a future for that business, and we can continue to visit and experience all of the things we love at the happiest place on earth. There's so much more we can go into. I'm going to try to keep this from getting super, super long. But there was also discussion through the morning about the future of the Disneyland Resort. And this really was interesting, because clearly there is great effort being taken right now to learn from the law of unintended consequences, mistakes, whatever you want to call them, of the past, to create a more vibrant future for the Disneyland Resort and more magical experiences for the guests who visit. This includes during construction. It was interesting hearing how, as they're looking at the 10-year plan of what's coming with Disneyland forward, there isn't just considerations being put into like, oh, we make this and then we make that and we build this and we build that. And it's not just about construction. It's about the guest experience during the construction. It's the cast experience during the construction. It's the, how can we make this an exciting place to visit that's magical and everything you expect from a Disney theme park, while also building something. So you're not just going to a construction zone, which some of us find pretty cool, but instead you're going to the happiest place on earth that is a living, growing, exciting organization. And they talked about, heat maps of like, oh, this area, well, that's going to be a little bit lacking in magic, perhaps. So maybe an entertainment pop-up happens there, or maybe something short-term, limited time magic or something supplements the construction that's happening in this region of the theme park. And really, those kinds of discussions are also what led to the continuation of Monsters, Inc. at DCA, because what came out of this is a realization that Disney California Adventure really needs everything it possibly can have for young families. And one of the big focal points for new guests for the Disneyland Resort is young families. Hence why the Bluey thing is no surprise. And I should say, with the Bluey thing, they're actually doing I think it was with the Bluey thing. Anyway, there's coming a $5.99 meal deal for kids. And it's basically a hot dog, milk or water, and then an orange or something. And is it the most exciting thing? No. But what they're trying to do is they're really looking to the future in a way that makes the Disneyland Resort more accessible to young families, especially, prices are, they can be high. And so there is a kids offer, there's a California offer, and there's other things happening that really are trying to make Disneyland Resort as accessible from a ticket standpoint. But then you have things like this food offering or this meal offering for kids that also makes it so once you get there, you can actually eat, as opposed to, feeling like, oh, I better bring a sandwich or something to be able to afford my day at Disneyland. And I think that was something I really picked up, is there's a definite effort to make Disneyland as accessible as they possibly can. Sorry if that was a slight tangent, but I thought it was something important out of the day. But as they're looking forward, they're looking at these heat maps of guest experiences and really trying to make sure that everything is not coming at a cost of Disney magic. It's great to have new attractions. It's great to have new lands. But I think they're probably trying to avoid kind of a situation of like in the late, 2010, 11-ish, when they were redoing the entrance to Disney California Adventure. And it really was like, this is a construction zone you're going to. And so I think they're really trying to make these plans magical moving forward. I also found it very fascinating that the future of the Disneyland Resort isn't being looked at through the lens of the next 5 or 10 years. They're also looking decades ahead. They're really trying to set a foundation today, 70 years into Disneyland, that really sets Disneyland up for success for the next 70 years, so that it's vibrant, so it's active, and it's alive and magical. 70 years, which I guess would be 140th anniversary. Wow. Just like it is for the 70th. And I think that's something that really is interesting to watch as Thomas Mazloum and his team really become architects for what the future is going to be for the Disneyland Resort Disney experience. And that's a really exciting thing as well. And, there was other things discussed during the morning, whether it was, initiatives to reach people east of the Rockies that are making their trip to California for the first time, or, different entertainment offerings, and, will the Phantasmic Dragon come back? All I got for that question was there's a definite commitment to Phantasmic. So that's good to hear. But the real thing with this is what they're looking at is how can they balance, or harmonize was a word that was used very often, the business needs of Disney with the guest experience being absolutely magical. And so they're really looking at everything. And I don't really think anything is off the table as they look through this to try to make both of these things harmonize and create incredible opportunities for both. This is actually where the dropping of the park hopping rule. So currently you can't park hop till after 11, but in the future, they're just going to drop that. So once you've gone into park A and you have a park hopper ticket or magic key, then you'd be able to go into the other park, just like Walt Disney World, probably, from what I understand. But that was one of the things where they were looking through and they're like, what are things we can do to make for a simpler experience, simplify, and enhance the quality of the experience? Well, that hits that one too. And also just build trust. Like that's a trust builder, because that's something I think magic key holders in particular, but everybody, it's like you've spent the money on park hopping. You kind of have the expectation that you should be able to park hop anytime you want. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what other changes come in the future as they continue to really tweak and make little changes that are adding up to the bigger changes. And that really is exciting to watch and fun to think about as we're getting to see this Mazloum era really get going. Like he's had a year now, we're seeing what he can do, and we're seeing now the vision for where Disneyland can go in the future. That's super exciting. So as we're looking to the future of Disneyland from 2026, we have D23 coming, so we probably have some exciting announcements, maybe about the Disneyland Resort even this summer. And I think we have even bigger reasons to be excited, because this philosophy of a sophisticated simplicity, it really is focusing on fundamentals and getting really, really good at those, and creating a better, more positive environment where people can thrive as cast members, where they can thrive as guests and have a fantastic time and make memories of a lifetime. And at one point, there was a discussion about how the Disneyland Resort is really in the memory making business. Like that's what they do. And that's really something that goes back to day one of Disneyland. Like Walt Disney wanted people to come and make memories and experiences that would last a lifetime when they came to the happiest place on earth. And I think Disneyland Handcrafted was a wonderful analogy, because the precedent that was set by Walt Disney 70 years ago, that DNA is still in use today. It's a culture where risk taking is encouraged. It's a culture where quality is encouraged. It's a culture of innovation. It's a culture of moving forward. It's a culture of looking for the good and building people up. And it seems to be that this is the culture of the Mazloum era. This is going to be viewed as a time of positivity, of innovation, of making things better. Like that's really what it's about. And I'm very curious to see how that all plays out. I personally hope that we get to keep Thomas Mazloum in his current role for quite some time, so we can really see how this develops and evolves and blossoms, really, because I think that's just really what it's going to do. And there's a very distinct recognition that Disneyland is all about making people happy. It's going back to that, the happiest place on earth. The happiest place on earth should make people happy, and they should go home talking about it, and more people should want to go visit it. And that's really what's going to happen, I think, as we go through this Mazloum era with this doctrine of leadership that I personally find very exciting, and I would love to talk more about. If it's something you want to talk more about, please let me know. And we will do a podcast. Maybe I can get one of the other people that were at this event to talk about the leadership observations we observed during this event. But it will be very exciting to see how this leadership team and how this era at the Disneyland Resort continues to make people happy, continues to bring more people to the happiest place on earth, and also makes its own cast that much happier and that much more empowered and equipped. And this is just super exciting. Last thoughts. Watching the environment in the room of the day is probably one of my favorite things when I go to any of these events. I like to see how leaders interact with each other. I like to see how leaders interact with the people above them, and how they interact with the people below them, and how they interact with us in the media. And I will say I found it to be a very refreshing experience. Like, it was exciting to walk out of that meeting, I guess you could call it. But people were acknowledged, people were respected, people were all treated with dignity and love, I would almost say. And I think those are all things that people really need in a healthy working environment. And it made us sitting in the chairs at the tables listening to this conversation and getting to chat over lunch, it really made you excited as a guest, but also excited for the people that get to work at the Disneyland Resort during this era. Like this, I think, is going to be one of those eras that years and decades from now, we're going to look back and be like, you remember when this happened? You remember when hospitality was the centerpiece, and this was that pivot point that Disneyland went from great to super great. I don't know what to call it, but I do think we're at that pivot point. I do think we are entering a new era of even more Disney magic, even more awe-inspiring experiences from the Disneyland resort, whether it's, a kid seeing their dreams come true by getting to meet Bluey, or new immersive shows in the parks, whether it's, Shadows of Memory in Galaxy's Edge, or Tapestry of Happiness, or Paint the Night. Like there's so many different offerings that are throughout the resort right now. And a lot of them are different. Like you look at the landscape today, it's a different theme park and a resort than it was 15, 20 years ago. And that's not a bad thing, because as it keeps moving forward and it keeps growing, that's going to keep the business healthy. That's going to keep current guests coming back and excited about what's going on. And yes, we will grieve those things that have gone away, and we will miss them. But I would much rather miss a show or a certain attraction or a certain offering than have to ever miss the Disneyland resort, or even worse, the whole Walt Disney Company. Like that would be the ultimate tragedy. And so we do need to root for Disney to be a healthy business. We need to root for the Disneyland resort to be successful in these endeavors. And we also need to be thankful that they're putting such a huge focus on people, whether it's the people that come today, the people that make the magic, or the people that are coming tomorrow. Because when all of these things, all of these different sophisticated, simplified elements come together in harmony, that's when the happiest place on earth has a solid foundation for a very, very magical and bright future. If you've liked this podcast, please make sure to subscribe and let me know what you liked most about it. Let me know what you think of the changes coming to Disneyland Resort and the Mazloum Era philosophy and all of that, because I would be very curious to hear what your thoughts are and have more of a discussion about this. The best place to have an in-depth discussion about this is over on Daps Magic HQ. You can go to there by going to dapsmagic.com/dapshq, or just click the button on dapsmagic.com on the homepage. I'd love to connect with you there, or on social media, YouTube, wherever. We have a blast. It'll be great. And we love to geek out about Disney and positive stuff with you all. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. Thank you for watching or listening wherever you are. Keep kind, stay positive. We'll see you in the parks.